Welcome to the Explainer. You ever wonder how some companies can just sift through these enormous mountains of data and somehow pull out clear, smart decisions? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret sauce. It's a really powerful technique called dimensional modeling. All right, let's just jump right in. Think about all the data your company has. I mean, it's this huge, sprawling mess, right? You've got sales figures, customer info, inventory logs. It's all there. But when you try to ask a simple question like, what was our best-selling product last month? It feels like mission impossible. And trust me, this is a super common problem. So, what if I told you there's a better way? A way to organize all that data, not just to, stick it in a database, but to actually understand it, to get answers and get them fast. And get this, it's a system that a regular business person can use, not just some data guru. And that solution, it's called dimensional modeling. The best way to think about it is like a blueprint, like the architectural plans for building a house, but for your data warehouse. It's a design technique that is all about making things simple and fast, specifically for analysis and reporting. When you boil it all down, dimensional modeling is actually pretty straightforward. It's all about taking your data and splitting it into two basic types. You've got your numbers, and then you've got the story behind those numbers. Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? Let's start with the first main component, and that's what we call facts. Basically, these are all the numbers, the measurable stuff at the heart of your business. These facts, they live in something called a fact table. So if you're a retail company, for example, your fact table would hold things like how many items were sold, what was the price, what was the total revenue for that sale. It's just the raw numbers. So you might look in your fact table and see a number like $250,000. Okay, great. It's a big number. But so what? On its own, what does that number even mean? And that's the key, right? A fact by itself is pretty useless. It actually creates more questions than it answers. That number needs context before it can become actual useful information. And that is where the second piece of our puzzle comes in. Let's talk about dimensions, because dimensions are what give us all that crucial context we're missing. So dimension tables, they hold all the descriptive stuff, the words. They tell us who, what, where, and when. The product name, the brand, the store location, the exact date of the sale, all of that good stuff. And this really shows you how they work together, like a team. The fact table gives us the number, $250,000. But the dimension tables give us the story. It was $250,000 of running shoes sold in our New York City store during the month of July. See? One without the other is just incomplete. All right, so we've got our facts and we've got our dimensions. Now, how do we actually connect them in a smart, efficient way? Well, that brings us to the most common structure you'll see in dimensional modeling. It's called the star schema, and the name is perfect because, well, it literally looks like a star. You have your fact table sitting right in the middle, and all the dimension tables connect to it, radiating out like the points of a star. So here, right in the center of our universe, is the sales fact table. If you look closely, it's mostly numbers, right? Units sold, total revenue. But it also has these little keys: product ID, store ID, date ID. Think of these as the bridges that connect us to the context. And each one of those IDs links out to a dimension table, which are the points of our star. The product ID connects to the product table with all the details about the product. The store ID connects to the store table. It's a really simple but super powerful and organized way to set things up. Now, the star schema is pretty much the king because it's so simple and fast. But it does have this more complicated cousin called the Snowflake schema. That's where you start breaking down the dimension tables even further. It can save a little bit of storage space, but honestly, it makes things way more complex to query. So for most of what people need, the star schema is absolutely the way to go. Okay, so we've built our star, we've organized our data, but so what? What's the real payoff here? Why would we even bother going through all this? Let's talk about why this model is such a game changer. The number one reason, hands down, is speed. This kind of model is just ridiculously faster for analysis than a traditional database. See, those are built to store data efficiently, not to answer questions quickly. With a star schema, there are fewer moving parts, so you get your answers in seconds, not, minutes or even hours. But hey, it's not just about speed. This model is also way more intuitive. Your average business analyst, someone who isn't a database wizard, can look at this and it just makes sense. They can start slicing and dicing the data themselves. They can figure out which marketing campaign worked best in the Northeast last quarter all on their own. That's an answer that might have taken days to get before. It makes reporting easier, it gives everyone one single source of truth, and it just empowers the whole team. When you think about it, dimensional modeling is really the engine that makes this all happen. It takes that raw, messy data, it cleans it up, and turns it into useful information. And that information is what leads to real, valuable insights for the business. So in the end, a good dimensional model is what lets you ask the really interesting questions. It's how you finally unlock the stories that are hiding in your data. It's the framework that turns data from being this confusing liability into maybe your most valuable asset. So the only question left for you is, what story is your data just waiting to tell?